So during our time together, we'll cover a lot of material, and I'll be making use of a lot of words, ideas, concepts, practices, insights, discoveries, revelations from the fields of relational and somatic psychotherapies, the meditative traditions, neuroscience, alchemy, trauma studies, the teachings of the mystics, who knows what else. Um, each one of these areas of inquiry comes with its own set of images, of metaphors, language, and in my experience, really provides a unique sort of doorway or portal into that garden, which is inside the center of the mandala, the mandala of being, into that crystalline center of the soul or the self. And so we'll go back and forth likely throughout the various approaches and just again experiment and see what's most alive for each of us and also for us as a group. And we can focus on any of those in particular if and as you'd like. But I do want to say that there's something else here. And this just becomes more vivid, more sensitive, more lucid for me throughout the years. And that's that there's something going on sort of underneath or in between or in the space around all of the words and concepts and ideas that in some ways is even more important or more pregnant, more alive, more dynamic than understanding all of these concepts in a rational way. There's a shared sort of field of intelligence and connection. It's like a more of a right brain to right brain resonance. And to use more spiritual language, a certain sort of presence or a certain sort of grace, to use more religious language, that can reveal itself when we gather in this way, in this sort of shared intention to companion one another into the creative unknown, which is where we're going to find the mysteries of healing and spiritual discovery. And this presence, this sense of presence is something that we can sense, we can feel, we can listen to together in more and more subtle and nuanced ways as we deepen with this work, attuning to its more subtle qualities and fragrances, which, in my experience anyway, carry a certain kind of data and information and a certain sense of guidance for our own unfolding. Symbols, images, synchronicities, dreams. And speaking certainly for myself, it's vital that I listen and attune to this as well when we're together with as much sensitivity as possible, so that the words and the images and the metaphors that I make use of are an expression of that depth in the soul, of that depth in the group soul. And so understanding all of the concepts and the ideas, while that can certainly be supportive and helpful, it just may be, and you'll have to decide for yourself, of course, but it may be secondary to the listening, the receiving, the sensing, the attuning to your own inner experience and to what it is that's evoked when we gather together inside you and also within the field itself that we share in together. And knowing that what is evoked may be, especially when it comes to deep soul healing, that it may be nonverbal or it may be pre-verbal or not something necessarily that we can articulate and verbalize, at least at first. And sort of over the weeks and months, we may start to find language for feelings, images, visions, symbols, synchronicities, emotions that we may have lost contact with. And so paying particular attention to the feeling body, or what I sometimes might refer to and the traditions refer to as the subtle body, and to the soul. And we'll talk about those things in more depth. And also just to the feelings, the sensations, the images, the symbols, the synchronicities that arise in our time together is really important and can be a source of tremendous richness and meaning. And we'll be, of course, speaking a lot more about that. You know, because the truth is that for many of us, it does take some practice, some energy, some effort, to attune to these more emerging right brain dimensions of our experience. And we'll explore that together. Somatic sensitivity, imaginal sensitivity, sensitivity to the lost pieces of soul. And just to say, all healing, all transformation, all alchemical transmutation is embodied, meaning it involves a certain attunement or a certain capacity and sensitivity to soma, to the body. And this is something we'll for sure be looking at with one another, as for many of us, it just doesn't come all that naturally. We weren't taught that. Our world isn't necessarily a very embodied place. That may not come as much of a surprise, and especially if we have any sort of history of relational trauma or narcissistic or attachment wounding and so on, the body hasn't been a safe place necessarily. And that makes a lot of sense, actually. Of course. And we'll go into that because in the end, it is a very safe place. But we have to come to the truth of that slowly in the fire of our own immediate experience, and certainly not take my word for it. I mean, I don't really want you to take my word for anything, actually. This year isn't about taking on some sort of new physical, metaphysical, psychological, philosophical, or spiritual belief system. We've all had enough of that. This is about an invitation into that fire of your own direct experience, that first person primary experience. It is a path in that sense of direct revelation, and to open the door to that alchemical laboratory, that is your own psyche and soma and nervous system, and to conduct the experiments there. It's about the discovery of a spirituality that is your own, that is unique and resonant to your own soul print. And it might not look like your friend or neighbors or other family members.